Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have with us Travis Chappelle. Travis is one of the top podcasters. His guest lineup is admirable. He also is the founder of Guestio platform, if I incorrectly pronounce that. Travis will correct me, but it's a platform where guests and can set up a profile and go on shows, invite other guests on the show. Travis, welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us and meet with the audience and myself, and welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Yeah, happy to be here.
No problem. No problem. So tell me more about Guestio, this platform.
Yeah, Guestio is a software marketplace that connects podcast hosts, content hosts like YouTube channels or blogs or newsletters or podcasts with expert guests to interview for their content. So it has both sides of the marketplace in there. So if you're a guest and you're looking to get booked on shows, you can go pitch yourself on the shows or pay show hosts to bring you on. Or if you're a show looking for guests, then you can go pay guests or pitch guests to be on your show.
So you basically negotiate that right directly with the show.
Correct. Yep.
So exactly. usually, a lot of companies are out there, right? Like Interview Connection, and there's some other ones.
Yep.
You have to pay them per episode. I think you have to buy a batch of 15 and pay up front, 6,000-7,000, whatever it is. And then they put you on a tour. What is that uniqueness between that? I know what it is, but I want you to kind of explain it.
Yeah, the difference would be, because we also do that. We have an agency that does the done for you tours as well. The difference is like the software, you can just do it all yourself and for much cheaper. So we have some people using the software that have booked 20, 30 podcast appearances for $97 a month. The core differentiator for us is that we like to pay show hosts. We think that people who built the audiences deserve to get a slice of the pie rather than like our agency taking all of it and paying them nothing.
Yes. And that's that little loophole, right? That, these companies are out there, but they're not kind of sharing with the host amount. So with this platform, you're able to negotiate directly, deal with the host and get payment directly on your platform, correct?
Yep, exactly. Yep. All you got to do is set up a Stripe Connect account, which is free. You just set it up and then name your price. People will come in, they can pitch you, and then you can reply back and you can accept them for free.
Awesome.
You can respond for and say, hey, pay our full booking rate, or you can respond with like some sort of a discounted booking rate and kind of negotiate the price inside of the activity feed in the application.
Yeah, it's definitely a need for it. And I'm grateful that you came up with the concept and you launched this. How long has it been out?
So technically it's been live since the beginning of 2021. For all of 2021, we're just making a ton of feedback or making a bunch of changes based on feedback and things like that from our users. And so like it's been live since beginning of 2021, but really I feel like we've more been kind of go to market and launch mode at the beginning of 2022. It's really been it was a solid year and a half in product development before I felt comfortable with like actually going out and marketing it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to set up an account. I just wanted to kind of discuss with you firsthand on the interview about it, right? And then, you obviously bring on some high caliber guests. Any kind of pointers or any kind of help that you could provide audience how to gain that type of guest lineup?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is you pay for it. Which is one of the things Guestio does. It's like a Cameo, talent marketplace. You can get there and you can pay a guest to come on your show directly. That's the easy way. It just costs money, right? Like you're gonna have some sort of cost. It's either going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money.
Yes.
So if you have a bunch of money and not a bunch of time, then use the money. If you have a bunch of time, not a bunch of money, then use the time. And so when I first got started, I didn't have a bunch of money, so I used time, and it took me a very long time to start getting some of these people booked on my show. But what I started to notice was that the first one was the most difficult. The third one was a little bit less difficult. The seventh one was a little bit less difficult. The 12th one was a little bit less difficult. And then it got to the point where at some point it was just like almost anybody that I reached out to would just be a yes, like almost like clockwork, because we just built up such strong credibility. The key is like, you need to be able to get people to make a decision without having to do additional research or ask additional probing questions around whether or not they should be a guest on your show. So people, if they get to the stage where they're asking you what your downloads are, then you messed up your original reach out. Most people don't really care. Like the metric is not really downloads for busy people. The metric is, are you going to waste my time? So if you can answer that question before they even ask the question by providing enough upfront credibility and awareness, then they don't have to go do a Google search. They don't have to have their assistant follow up and ask about download numbers. They don't have to worry about anything else. All they do is just say yes at that point. It makes it a lot easier to go get those people on your show if you can have like a foundation of credibility from the get-go, which is why I usually recommend to people to use Guestio for like your first 3 to 5 big name guests that you can leverage in your cold reach outs. Like you don't have to always pay Guestio for a constant inflow of guests, but if you use it for your first 3 to 5 big names, then you can leverage those big names in your cold reach out strategies and get more people to say yes a lot easier than you would have if you're starting from scratch and you don't have anybody.
Yeah, no, excellent. Because it's giving them, answering all the objections beforehand, right? Like through a media kit and that kind of information. That's what we do as well. We've been blessed so far. We didn't pay for any guest, just for one. But other than that, we did not. It's been pure organic back and forth follow-ups, because these guys are busy too. But we definitely, there's a few people in your lineup that I would love to have on the show. So definitely, I'm sure they're on Guestio already. And that's I would love to join that platform. It was really exciting when I saw what you did, because there's this industry is growing, right? Like it's like if you're in business and you don't have a podcast, or you're not coming in front of the camera or your voice, speaking to people and sharing your knowledge, nowadays people are striving for that connection, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think you're setting yourself up for failure if you're not creating content, especially if you have like an online business, right? Like if you're like a local chiropractor, maybe it's not as important for you, but yeah, if you sell online, you can sell in any state and ship anywhere, or you are selling SaaS or info products, or where you don't have a high cost of goods sold, then you're not creating content. I think you're doing yourself a disservice, and I think you're going to make future prospecting just as difficult as current prospecting. Whereas when you have content that's out there working for you, it becomes easier over time because that attention compounds.
Yeah. No, I love it. I was very camera shy before and stuff, but then after I started noticing, I got so addicted to it, meeting people. I love meeting people, right? But it's different when you're on camera and like being recorded. So that was a turning point. You had to kind of fight it. There's a lot of mindset stuff involved in this, right? In your journey, have you worked on your mindset, or were you always on fire, trying to get to your goals?
No, absolutely. It worked on my mindset. I mean, I don't know if anybody's born with like the correct mindset from the beginning. I think that obviously if you grow up in abundance or affluence, then it's easier for you to visualize. Yeah, right. Like, cause you've experienced it to a certain extent. But if you grow up in a normal household, like most of us, like you're used to just seeing most people not really have much, and you're used to not seeing anybody do extremely well. And like you're used to being like, the level of success that you're looking at is, whoa, that person makes 6 figures. Wow. That's crazy. You know what I mean? And so if your mindset is 6 figures is a lot of money, then 7 figures is an impossible amount of money. You know what I mean? Like you have to work on your mindset if you want to be able to evolve into somebody that you never had any examples of, seeing or interacting with when you grew up. Because you don't even really realize what's possible or how it's possible or what the steps are to get there. I always thought it was growing up. I always thought, it's possible to become a millionaire, but only if you get extremely lucky. Like you have to like invent Angry Birds or Facebook in order to become a millionaire, or you got to invent this new gadget, or you got to I always thought of the Breathe Right strip guy that he was an inventor, and that was his first thing that ever took off, is he invented the Breathe Right strip that you put on your nose and like opens your nostrils, allows you to breathe better or whatever. But that one thing made him a ton of money. Or the guy that invented the pool noodle made millions of dollars on selling essentially a floating piece of styrofoam that you put in your pool. I always thought it kind of had to be that way. I didn't think that it was just like a duplicatable, repeatable process. If you're willing to put in work, time, effort, energy, and invest into yourself and your knowledge and your connections, I didn't view it as like a duplicatable roadmap, like a blueprint that you could get there. I thought you just had to get kind of lucky. And so I do a lot of work around my mindset around like what was possible for me and if it was possible for me, and reframing my mind to believe that it was possible before it happened. And that's a lot of work to do when you're starting from not really seeing much of that, growing up.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like for me, there were those infomercials late night. I always wanted to be in business, right? So I would see these guys on the like yachts and these things, and I was like, wow, how did they come up with this? Oh, I gotta invent something. Inventing is the only way. And you're right. Once you reprogram your inner world, your exterior starts translating into that programming. It's just so beautiful how the process works. There's so many people that are struggling with this. I actually had a call earlier. She was she booked an appointment with me, like to set up a business, but she was so out of it, like the mindset, everything was like, no, I'm not feeling it. I try to help, say I don't want to do anything. Like I just give me a week. I just don't. So this kind of stuff is so common right now outside that it feels that if in our position, for example, all we want to do is we're trying to find ways to serve these people and bring that awareness, right? And podcasts and creating this kind of podcast, a networking podcast, you get in front of more people, get their attention, and sharing that to the masses where they can also find solutions within, right?
Totally. Yeah. It allows, I think the great thing about podcasting is it allows people access to those conversations that they would have never had before, where that was what it was for me when I started listening to podcasts. It was hearing stories of people who had been where I was and had gone where I wanted to go, even though they started where I was, or even worse than I was. People who like just crazy stories. And then when I started my podcast and started interviewing a bunch of people, it was the same thing. You interview these people who have this crazy story of like dumpster diving and homeless, and they're immigrants. They don't even speak the language. They're pulling out their shirts from the dumpster because they can't afford to buy a new one. And like, then they're running $100 million business within like 15, 20 years of that. And it's like, oh, interesting. So like you do have the ability to create change in your life if you're willing to put in the work to make it happen. You don't have to accept what you were given. You can create more, which is obviously all in your mind. It's the battles, started and won in your mind.
Yes. Can you share one of your worst failures and one of your best wins? I
mean, there's so many failures, dude. It's not even,
same here.
Failures and successes. It's just like
something memorable that came.
Probably one of them was the first time we ever did on the side of kind of some of the stuff that we do a little bit of real estate investing with my parents. And the first deal that we ever did that was out of state in a market that we're unfamiliar with, we jumped in, took action, bought it. And we didn't have the right intel. We ran the numbers by 2 or 3 different agents, but they just must not have known this like particular subdivision very well. And so when we flipped the property, we thought the ARV, the after repair value, would have been closer to like 400,000. And then after we put in all the work in the property, it ended up being at like 330,000. So like literally our entire profit that we had built in was completely eroded. And we had to turn it into a rental property because we didn't want to offload it and lose 30 grand because we had put like 75,000 in the renovation. And so we did it as a rental for like a year and a half. Like in retrospect, obviously we wish we would have kept it longer because we would have made a profit. Like it's probably selling for over 400K now. in that particular market. But like when COVID hit, nobody knew what was happening. And so we were like, it's an out of state property. It's going to be difficult to go visit. There's just so many unknowns that we were just like, hey, we can sell it now and only lose like $5,000 or $10,000, we don't know what's happening to the market. It could collapse. So we got rid of it, and we ended up losing. I don't know. I want to say we lost like $5,000 to $10,000 a piece, me and my parents on that deal. Yes. And it was one of the only deals we ever lost money on. But yeah, it was definitely a failure, and it was a bummer at the time because we thought that we were going to make so much money on it. Yeah. And like I said, if we would have kept it now, we probably would have made a healthy profit on it, but can't predict the future. So
yeah, it's a wise decision. Whatever happened. And it's great. It could have been a lot worse, right? So it's great that, yeah. So what was the one thing that you took from that as a learning? Because failures are just basically, success tax, right? Like you have to go pay it. And then we get to someplace. What did you gain from it? From that experience? Don't
invest where you don't know, because like I am not a full-time real estate investor. So if we're going to do deals in areas like my dad is a real estate agent where I grew up in Southern California. So any deal he brings to the table in his market, I'm always okay with putting money in those deals because I know that he knows that market backwards and front, and he's been doing it for 20 years over there, and has been an agent over there for 20 years. And so like when we find a deal in that market, let's do a deal. But unless I'm going to put more time, effort, and energy into learning a new market, then I'm not going to invest my money in those other markets unless it's with somebody that knows that market really well. So that was one of those takeaways for sure. Like I don't have to be the expert. If I have some extra money and I want to make some money in real estate, I can just go give it to somebody, a friend of mine who does a bunch of stuff in real estate, which is more of our kind of our MO now, is like save up some money, write a check to somebody else who does real estate full time, and then kind of reap some of the benefits. They take some of the profits, but then I don't have to go learn all the numbers and take the majority of the risk on myself.
Yeah, no, wise learning from there. What about your best win?
Probably one of like my best wins was my first ever 6-figure month.
Nice.
And it was one of those mind stretching moments where in your mind that again, we talk about mindset. In your mind that it's possible. I had plenty at that point. I had been in enough masterminds to have plenty of friends who were doing 6-figure months. I had never done one, and you start to question whether or not it's possible for you. But I just kept taking like big risks over and over again that most people probably wouldn't have. Like, so we threw a live event. This was at the end of 2019. Never thrown a live event before. We threw a live event, and we were paying a lot more money than most people would be paying for live events at the level that we were at. So like most people are just going to like rent out a hotel ballroom, get some like nasty chicken in the lunch lines, and like
you did it right.
It's $7,000 out the door, and they're done for like the full event. We decided to do our event at Topgolf. And so we rented out the entire meeting space at Topgolf. They brought in good food. We rented out all of the golf bays during like a 2-hour lunch so people could network and play golf during lunch. We ended up spending $40,000 on the event when we probably could have spent, like I said, 7 or 8. But we made like 38 on ticket sales and sponsorships leading up to the event. So by the time we started the event, we were almost break even.
Yeah.
And then I sold from stage, which was the first time I ever sold from stage. So obviously all of it was just like, I think this is what we can do. I have no idea if it's going to work, but I think this is what we can do. So spent the $40,000, ended up making 38 back by the time we started the event. And then sold a $12,000 mastermind, and we filled it up. We did like $200 and something $1,000 in that weekend. We ended up refunding like 3 people afterwards that got cold feet. And so we ended up probably around like 150 or so for the weekend or whatever in revenue. And it was the first time where I was like, holy shit, it worked. You know what I mean? Like the thing, like I did the work. I invested in myself. I learned from the right mentors. I mitigated my risk as much as possible, but I still took the big risk in paying this amount of money. Like when I was dropping $40,000 in an event, we probably had like $75,000 in my operating account. Like it was a pretty big risk to put that much money down. So to see that it was like, it really worked. It like did the thing that it was supposed to do, that we planned for it to do. It was a big like deposit in the confidence bank to be like, okay,
amazing.
Now let's like go try to do this again,
Amazing. Round of applause. You deserve it, my friend. That's awesome. I love hearing these stories, by the way. Like it's so incredible, like every individual has their own little journey, little stories, right? So it's really nice to bring that out to the surface so other people can hear and learn from it, right? And that step that you took made a huge difference in your inner world. Like you said, like the confidence level, it just changes everything, right? What was your takeaway from that big win?
That if you want to get to the next level, you have to act like the next level before you get there. Which was a big learning for me, because everybody wants to get to the next level. Like if you talk to people, it's like, I want to like 100,000 a year, $250,000 a year, $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, whatever level you're at now, like level up a little bit. But then when you explain to them some sort of a roadmap to get there, that's when they start being like, well, I don't know, or, oh, right now is not a good time. And excuses start to proliferate. And what I realized at an event like that, like I said, was that if I wanted to be somebody that was making $1 million a year, that had a like 7-figure business, then I had to start thinking like a 7-figure business owner, even though I wasn't making 7 figures a year yet.
That's it.
So dropping 40K on an event when I didn't necessarily have the budget to be able to do that. Like I barely had the budget, but I didn't know that I was going to sell enough tickets and sponsorships to pay it off before we got to the event. I didn't know that when I was putting the money out for it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know how many people were going to buy from stage, or anybody. I didn't know if anybody was going to buy from stage. I didn't know any of that stuff. That was all unknowns. So dropping 40 grand when I only had like 70 in my account or whatever it was, I don't remember the exact number, was a massive risk for me. But I was trying to think of it as like, if I were running a 7-figure business, would 40 grand be a lot? And that answer was no, it wouldn't be. So I have to be able to make the decision of the level that I'm trying to get on if I want to get to that level. Because you can't just act the same way that you're acting now and expect for it to achieve different results. It's just going to keep achieving the same results that you've always been achieving. The only way to get better results is to do better things or different things and be willing to take the risks of somebody who's at the level above you. And that's something that, kind of taken away into multiple aspects of my life now. Like in this mastermind that I'm in now, actually happen to be wearing a shirt with the logo on it. 100 Million Mastermind is. Oh
yes. I heard of them.
Yeah. It was $100,000 mastermind. When I bought into that mastermind, it was one of those moments again, where it was like, this is a lot of money for me for a mastermind. $100,000 for a single mastermind. Like that's stretching it by like double what I ever thought I would pay for a mastermind. But I started thinking about it and I was like, the people in this group are people that are doing 7, 8, and a lot of them 9 figures. It's called the 100 million because all of the instructors that get up in front of you have done 100 million plus in revenue and views and sales, whatever. So I was like, if I get around those people look at 100 grand like it's nothing. Right. So if I want to, in the future, be able to look at 100 grand like it's nothing, then I have to begin at some point treating it like it's not that big of a deal if I lose it. If I invest the money and I lose 100 grand, I have to reframe my mind to think about it's not about the money. It's about the time that I save. I can go regenerate the money. Money is replenishable. It is a regenerative asset. You can go get more of it if you lose some of it. Time, you can't. So if I can invest 100 grand to save myself 2, 3, 4, 5 years of a learning curve, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of relationship building and networking to get around all these people and learn all these things from these people, if I can invest this money to get all of that time back, it seems like it would be a good investment. And even if it goes south, I have to start framing my mind to think about 100 grand not being that much money if it's something that helped me achieve the goal that I had in my mind from the start. And that was difficult to do. I'm not sitting here pretending like I was just like, oh, let's do it. It took me like 4 months to make the decision and lost a little bit of sleep over it because it was so much money and I had a little anxiety and butterflies in my stomach and all that stuff. But like at the end of the day, everything good in my life has always been on the other side of something uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If you are only ever going to stick in that comfort zone, then you can't achieve anything outside of what you're currently capable of achieving, which isn't that much.
It's all mindset, right? When you elevated, when you're coming from that place that you already have it, and you make decisions from that place, you're taking actions from that place. Everything that you're operating as is from that place. So you start seeing the results from that place. I would love to know, my next question would be, is that who were your mentors? You'd mentioned
so many
mentors.
So like many along the way.
2 or 3 of them top.
Yeah. One of the first ones was John Lee Dumas from his podcast is Entrepreneur on Fire. So when I'm a big believer in finding mentors that do the thing that you really want to do rather than just like generic mentors that do generic things that, like, if you're trying to tackle a certain thing, go find somebody who does that thing and they do it at an excellent level. So when I started podcasting, I was like, John Lee Dumas makes over $1 million a year directly from his podcast, which there's not many people that can say that. Like, just in sponsorships, he'll make $1 million a year just directly from his podcast. Then you add in like affiliate revenue, some other things. Like, he does extremely well, and 95% of his revenue ties in directly to his podcast, which is very rare. It's over 1 million downloads a month. Interviewed all the people I wanted to interview. So I was like, this is the guy. So he kind of became my first mentor. And frankly, he's been a mentor kind of ever since. And he's an investor and partner in my software company, which is kind of a cool like full circle moment. But then a couple other ones would be like Dan Fleischman, who's one of the co-founders of the 100 Million Group. I look up to Dan for a lot of different things, especially for investing and how to spend your time and things like that. And then, I mean, so many others along the way. Joel Marion, the other co-founder, is another person I look up to a lot. A friend of mine, Sharon Srivatsa, sold a $3.5 billion real estate company and now is partner at a hedge fund. Somebody I look up to a lot, a friend, Sam Ellis, who was a CTO at a growing software company. That's one of my mentors with my software company. There's so many people that I turn to for advice.
Awesome. That's great. Without mentorship, it's such a tough journey, and that's the key. Finding what someone is doing really well that you want, pay them because it's their right. They deserve it. They deserve it. You got to pay for it. Yeah, they deserve it. They did it. Give them what they're asking for, like give them what they need and transfer that knowledge, get their guidance, get to that place. I don't know what will happen. I don't know if I would be where I am without mentors. Like, mentors is everything. Everything.
Yeah, it's the shortcut,
I'm so grateful. Man. Yeah, it's a shortcut, especially time. Like you said, as time is limited, right? You want to invest and bring that time more in our favor. Exactly. I do appreciate your time, Travis. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you have any kind of final words for the audience that you would like to share, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Would love to connect with anybody. Thanks for checking the show out. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Thanks for anybody who spent the time with us, who are still with us at the end of this. Would love to connect with you guys and help out wherever I can. Just travischappell.com, CHAPPELL. Head over there. I'll find my social links, email, everything like that over on my website. So travischappell.com, reach out and we'll chat.
Awesome. Yeah, you, Travis, you definitely seem like someone has a open door policy, and it's great to have you on the show. I'm hoping anybody in the audience that's looking for guidance, Travis is your guy. Get in touch with him. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me on our show here. And I wish you all the best for the future.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for having me.